Hi, welcome to Trap Souls Podcast. I am Ryan. I'm here with Adam Kimmell. Talked to him a couple months ago. Met him at Madison. Just got excited right from the get go. Asked him to come on the show, and we talked about let's go down this rabbit hole here, and this is what we're going to do.
It's funny, when we first did talk, you were there for a private investigation, and I didn't know that you had been to the Madison Seminary way before I purchased it. Like, how long back was it again that you had been there?
I think 19 years ago was the first time I went there.
So the one thing that got me excited about this discussion, there's going to be a lot of topics, but you said something really interesting. You're like, the haunting has changed. It isn't the way it used to be. Like how the Madison Seminary would have been 19 years ago. And I was saying, yeah, even back 2016, 10 years ago, like the building feels different, like these hauntings evolve. But you are probably one of the farthest back. What's 19 years from now? That's like, oh God, dude. 2006, 2007.
Right. That's
in that, because I don't know how early people were investigating the seminary, because with the former ownership, you had to know someone who knew someone who knew someone to get in there,
Right.
So, and it was a different ball game. And we talked about this stuff too, all these locations, how the hauntings evolve. And we can get into that. We don't have to start with that, but there's a lot of good discussions on that,
Oh, it definitely is. We're just going to start a little generic right from the beginning. I know you're out there all the time on TikTok and stuff. And to be honest with you, I started watching you on TikTok, I think a couple years ago. I'm like, this dude is crazy.
Right.
The stuff you were saying, I'm like, ooh, this dude's off the wall. But the more I talk to people, the more I do these podcasts, you're right on cue here.
Well, I think, it's interesting. And you're in the same lineup, dude. It was refreshing to talk to you when I had the chance when you were at Madison. It's that here's the way I look at the breakdown. All right. We all get into the paranormal at some point via however. It could be from being haunted as a child, watching TV shows. It doesn't matter your origin. The longer you're in the game, you start asking very, very odd and advanced questions. It's not black and white. When you first get into the paranormal, it's very black and white. You know what I mean? It's like,
right.
Oh, you're not even really thinking about like, holy shit, I just saw that shadow person. What is that? It was more the excitement. I saw a shadow person up on that floor. Oh my God. And that was the end of it. And we just talk about how exciting the experience was of seeing it. But then the longer you're in it, you start breaking down the mechanics. You're like, what the hell did I actually see? Right. What is that disembodied voice? How does EVP phenomena even work? You become like this, you just become tortured after a while. And what seems radical actually, I think, is leading in the right direction to finding the answers. Right. So some of it seems crazy, though. I get it. Trust me, on some of these lives that I've done, you actually, I wrote some of the things down on these notes that I had. You actually said, what are spirits? Right. In one of the things. And it is a very commonly asked question, because, the one privilege I have of owning the locations, Madison Seminary, Fairfield County Infirmary, and helping, with Indiana State Sanitarium, Billy Creek, Stark Saloon, and on, you get to see how big the community is. Because I think when I first got into this, you only think there's like a few ghost hunting teams. I used to come in and think, man, we're like the first team that's ever done this place. We're going to tell the owner, we'll show all of our evidence. What they don't realize is that there are hundreds of teams that have traveled before you and hundreds that are going to be after you. But we all ask that question, what are spirits? And when I'm saying about the teams that are coming through, the different perspectives, when I have the opportunity to sit down and just listen to some teams come in and they're super scientific, like no bullshit. It is all science. We need to back it up with, statistics, data, all that stuff. Then you got other teams that are like, we just go by feel and experience, and that's how we catalog it ourselves. Or you have some teams that are extremely religious. Now, what is going on with all these different perspectives is the filter of how they investigate. So when you ask every individual group that same question, you ask the scientific group, what are spirits? And they're like, it's the exchange of energy, the law of conservation. We are an energy source, and when we pass away, we just become this little blip of energy, maybe an orb, you know, it contracts into a little ball, and that's those things we see. That is the remnants of that energy. If you ask the religious team, more than likely they'll say, well, we're talking to demons. And then my follow-up is, well, if you're that religious and you believe in demons, why are you doing this? Wouldn't you want to stay away from that shit?
Yeah.
And you know, and I don't say these things to the teams. I'm not here to be I am not Judge Dredd here. I listen to everybody. I don't criticize any way. Any tactic of investigating is fine for the individual. I have my own, you know, opinions, as you do. It's just interesting to listen to that. So, you know, it is a loaded question. There was another question you had that I really liked. All right, because we're just let's put the gloves on. Let's get into this shit, dude. Let's jump in. And the different dimensions question. I don't hear about this a lot. You said, and I'm taking your stuff and I have my stuff here, but you said, are there different dimensions? You know what is such a can of worms right now with paranormal investigations is the disclosure of aliens, right? We get this big disclosure, and I was like, oh shit. Because trust me, I've been on the alien train for a while. I'm like, there's just no way the universe or universes, whatever we're in, is just too big. It can't be that randomized. There has to be something out there. But, well, if there is a disclosure and they're saying they are here among us, well, man, we got to really reevaluate what a shadow person is, because that could be an interdimensional being. Those could have been aliens from the beginning observing us and just realizing that, hey, those ghost hunters are crazy. They're going to mistaken you for a ghost, and you can spy on them rather easily. You can even get caught on camera, and they don't know it's you. So, I don't know. That really raises a question. Maybe we are overlapping with a bunch of shit with the dimensions. Perhaps, you know, one interesting theory I heard about that stuff is the past, present, and future all happening at one time. And when we're interacting with spirits that we think, it's that it's bleeding over. You know, when we hear a disembodied voice and it says hello, we may be bleeding over to the past or bleeding over to the future, and they've heard our disembodied voices, and we're just all interacting with each other. You know, these were great questions you asked, because like this is that seasoned advanced thinking that it will keep you up at night a little bit. It doesn't, the nostalgia for the game isn't gone, but it becomes a little more chaotic, you know, like it's like, whoa, this is a little more in depth.
I mean, like you talked about, there's 3 different types of people, you know, scientific, feeling, religion. Now, are we ever going to find an answer? But what we got to look at, does any of that overlap? Maybe that's where we have to start. You know?
I think the way I look at it, you know, in our time right now, okay, we had the Victorian era and they were messing around with this stuff. Actually, you know, people have talked about these things for a long, long time. Spirits, ghosts, all this stuff. The Victorian era opened the door with them really trying to communicate with spirits. And, you know, you got Edison creating the telephone to the dead. You had Tesla talking about this stuff as well. Actually, he was talking more about aliens with his energy work. But with what the tools we have in our hand now we are making some advances, but I'm not exactly sure if we're there yet that we can make that break. It may take another 100 years. I don't think it will always be a forever mystery. I think humanity's too curious that we are going to keep chiseling away at it till we get it. The way that I try to contribute to the game of like solving. Now, I could sit here and just come up with all these theories, ideas, blah, blah, blah. But I've learned that maybe I am not good enough to finish the game. It's like a big puzzle.
Right.
And the one thing I've done with the properties is, you know, I love watching people come in. There's so many new people. There's a whole new generation getting interested. They have their own ideas, their own way of doing it. And I like getting those people excited because the next breakthrough may be with one of those individuals. So we need, instead of having such a toxic community, which we do exist in, but again, humanity's toxic. We could be a part of the sewing club, and I bet they're brutal. No, Betty, you can't sit at our table. Like it's brutal wherever you go. But what I've learned about that toxicity is I try to be a little bit of the beacon of the light. You bring people in, hey, people are going to be shit regardless, but be a part of this community. Help work on the puzzle. We can figure this out because these are some very, very important questions. My backstory is I dropped out of college for this shit. I dropped out of 5 years of political science, international security, and counterterrorism. I had a 5-year ride at Slippery Rock University, and one EVP. And to any kids watching this, college is don't do it. Just get right into the workforce, make some money. But I jumped out of that, and one EVP, I dropped out of college. I had 6 credits left to go to Washington, D.C. for an internship. That EVP, because I've always been a science nerd, was like, whoa. Because I used to make fun of the shows. A lot of these shows were bullshit. Yeah. And once you start getting the evidence on your own, and this is why I love skeptics. I am not going to be that guy. Well, tonight Billy's a skeptic, but he's going to believe. No, Billy can be a skeptic as long as he wants, because you need to stay skeptical as long as you can, because the point of no return will come. You will see that shadow person. You will hear that disembodied voice. You will get something that tips you over the edge, and then you're on a show like this talking with us. You know what I mean? Like, there's no point of return.
All right, let's talk about equipment here. Talk about how we're making advances. And this is where my debate is going to start coming in. It's one reason why I created it. Is the equipment we are using helping or hurting the paranormal field? I think it's hurting. I think there's a lot of false positives and people are believing and not the right thing.
100%. If I have to be real, like, here's the thing. I think a lot, we're like basically we're like cavemen with our equipment. That's the age we're in right now, right? Here's the dilemma. Let me explain why equipment may be misleading investigations, getting these false positives. You are very familiar with the Madison Seminary. You know, we have a haunting known as Sarah. Was Sarah's room there back when you investigated? Was it Sarah's room? Okay. Yes. I think you'd said that. All right. This is why, and I'm quite sure there'd be some owners that would love to capitalize on this. Like, I got a little demon child in my building, and it's a haunted Sarah, all this shit. I question that haunting, because I would love to know what team came in first before the Madison Seminary was even on the grid. Some team had to come in to establish these hotspots that are eventually going to be talked about later. That first team that came in, what equipment were you using? And please, God, tell me you weren't just a group of psychics going on feeling. Like, I feel there's a Sarah. That would throw me through a loop of just being pissed off and really talking shit. But what equipment did you use that night? How were you investigating? And how did you come to the conclusion that it was a definitive hit that there is a little girl named Sarah haunting in that specific room of the Madison Seminary? Were you using a bunch of REM pods? Were you asking your questions slow? Were you asking your questions fast? I don't even think the tactic of Estes method, which came from the Geinsfeld experiment, even existed back when this would have been established. So what tactics were you using? Was it a bunch of beepy lights going off right at a good sequence? Are you a girl? Are you a boy? And then did it just line up right? You know what I mean? How did we come to that definitive conclusion? I think that misleads a lot of hauntings at a lot of locations. You get what I'm getting to in my grievances. Is some of the equipment good? Yeah. I think the Ovilus is a piece of shit tool. When you look at it in theory, it's a database, right? Yes. It's like a 10,000, whatever X amount of words. And you're telling me you can fire this thing right up, and whatever word is said is a ghost talking to you. They figured out, like, if I put this X amount of energy into the device, I can get the word rabbit. But if I put this X amount of energy in, I can get the word road. You get what I'm saying? Like, what a piece of shit tool. But here's the thing where I try to, this is, in my position, it is still, you never get out of politics. It's social politics. I still have a lot of friends in my group, my whole circle, that really like the Ovilus. And I've got those that don't. So again, I listen to everybody. That's just my personal opinion from the breakdown. But yeah.
No, I mean, word banks, apps, I think they're all bullshit. That's my theory on it. I have friends that use apps. I have friends that use, Ovilus. Have at it. I'm game with it. If you want to use it, I'm not going to take any credit for it. Trust me. When you sit there, are you with me? And it goes outside, and you're like, oh, you're outside. Next to you. Oh, you're next to me. Rabbit hole. Oh, you're down the rabbit hole. Like, you can twist anything.
Yes, because every word becomes relevant, they think.
Right.
And it could just be, okay. The only way I could really defend the Ovilus, this would have to be an experiment where you set an Ovilus in a location for an X amount of time, and you allow whatever environmental energy or these floating EMF anomalies to trigger the device, and every word in that database goes off. That's also a far stretch. That's to be like, then you've seen every word used in the database, which means theoretically, but not very strong, is that a spirit has understood how to manipulate every single word in that database. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like taking the obelisk to a brand new location. And unless something's following you that is very advanced, because this gets like into the Ghost Adventures theory. Why does the Ghost Adventures crew get so much evidence? Regardless of what people think about Zach and what they've been doing, I would believe that they do have a lot of attachments following them, which means they will never, ever, ever again have an investigation where they're communicating with the domestic haunting. It's more than likely a foreign haunting that's following them and just contaminating their investigation. But what I'm getting at with that is, if you do have these spirits that are following you, they must understand what you're using. They must understand when you pull out a digital voice recorder that you are trying to capture their voice in some form or another. And they may maybe tell other spirits how that works. And that's even like very soft thinking. It may not even work like that. We all assume there's the invisible people just hanging out, waiting for you when you come in the door. Like, what the shit, dude? Really? Like, what a terrible existence. Like, but
I mean,
yeah.
I was gonna say, you've been doing this for years. I mean, you can make a recording, put pauses in between it, and say words, and just go into a location with whoever and say, "Hey, I got this app. Let's try it out." And it's just a recording of "I'm behind you."
Oh, yeah. What I heard on, I don't know which device it is. Maybe it's the opposite of that, but like you can actually program when the statistical, like a statistical value of how often a word is said, due to EMF interference. Put an obelisk next to a microwave, put it next to a refrigerator, see what happens. I don't mean to be blunt on this, but like, out of the means for experimentation, do that. See what happens. They'll go crazy. They'll just start like ripping words out and stuff. But you can program it to say more common words like demon, trapped, get out. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's all, I don't know, man. I don't know. Oh. But that does get into a question you asked. I'm hitting your big four that's on this paragraph. It says, why does some stay behind? And this gets into that question, like, are ghosts really just hanging out? Are they sitting at these properties waiting for people to come in? Why do some stay behind? And, the more I've thought about this is that this is my personal belief that, if you think about your grandparents, eventually the world passes everybody by. I'm a millennial. Right. So to me, like, the world kind of capped. The nostalgia of the world was like the early 2000s, like 90s, 2000s, early 2000s. That's the way, like, I still remember the world at its like most magical time. And now we just exist. We float through the world. But if you look at the people that came before us, they kind of get stuck in a certain time period. Look at music, for example. There is a certain point where you peak on music. And I don't give a shit who's listening right now. Adam, that's so not even true. Yes, it will happen to you eventually, to where your musical taste will peak. And when you get into your 40s or your 50s and you listen to this new music that's coming out, you're probably not going to like it. You're not going to be able to connect with it. You're stuck in a certain time period. So I think spirits are the same way, with the way things used to look, the way furniture was set up, the way the world was operating. My grandparents were the people that used to have the TV on top of the other TV because they don't want to get rid of their old TV. And you walked into the house and it was like time capsuled. It was not modernized. Now, maybe grandparents now, which we're getting older, have modernized a little bit more, but like, you'd walk into their house and it was like, dang, dude, this is like you're walking back into the 60s, Yeah. And I think with ghosts, they get comfortable with that. And they don't, why do hauntings peak off when you're renovating a house? It's like you're disturbing what they remember. If they are there, they're trying to tether themselves to the last thing in this world they remember. If it's not family, if they're not ready to pass on, and we can get into that question, but like, if they're trying to just stay a little longer and hold on to a memory that is fleeting, it's that environment. They're remembering the things around them. And the minute you start changing that shit, oh, dude, you have destroyed the last thing that they remember. And it's going to get probably a little physical, perhaps, maybe poltergeist. Maybe that's what's causing it. They're just angry. But
have you seen that in Madison at all?
Oh, a lot of poltergeists. Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing. I try to make it look like home to them, and I tell the spirits that. I say when I first bought it in 2016, crazy walking around. I was telling all the spirits, this is your home. I'm going to be taking care of it for a little while, but at the end of the day, this is still yours. I'm going to do my best to recreate it to, a turn of the century look all the way up into the 60s, various different decorations, the best that I can do with the crew that knows the layout and the formula. I've also told spirits that they're free to leave if they want to. But here's the thing, when you hear these spirits that say they're trapped or they can't leave, I don't think that's a human thing that we're doing. I think either they're stuck in some kind of trauma that they're just communicating. They feel trapped. Even in death, they still feel trapped. Even though, like in the asylum, when you go up there into the wing, all the doors are always open. It's not like we're closing doors. That's actually a thing. We always keep all the doors open, that you're free to go. I think if spirits do decide to stay there, their energy, their essence, whatever they are, it's because they're trying to hold on to a world that's no longer there. And this is their last battlefront. Because the minute you leave the seminary, man, the world has changed dramatically. Like, what the hell is a sheets? What the hell are these things with four wheels walking around, like driving around, Corvettes and stuff, Yeah, I have run into that though. But I think I've run into the reversal though. When I started getting the Civil War second floor wing furnished, I heard more disembodied voices. I heard like chatter between women, heard the phantom footsteps. It's almost like it elevated the activity, but that also raises another can of worms. You're bringing in items that are not from that location, right, and putting it in there. Is that a foreign haunting I'm experiencing, or is it a mix of the domestic and the foreign, like mixing?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I was
talking
to one of
your. It's inconclusive. It's hard. You can only speculate.
Yeah, I was talking to one of your guides one time because I brought a group there 2 years ago. Never really investigated before. They wanted to go there. Like, let's start with Madison. It's not that bad. It's not that scary.
Yeah, it's very easy.
We went there. It was nonstop all night. They were freaked out. I had someone leave.
Sure. Remember I said,
and I was like, oh, damn, dude, sorry about that. Like, I've been here so many times. It's been cool. Then the next time I went there, I was talking to your guide, and they're like, oh, Adam brought some stuff over from a place that I think you're trying to buy, but it had to be demolished or something.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I'm like, man, you can't be mixing that stuff in. Like,
right?
I'm like, yeah. But like you said, is it another spirit that's, fighting with another spirit, trying to take, be the alpha?
Right. Or is it like, I can see, it's hard, and we'll get into the doll attachments because I feel like we're on the same page. But getting into item attachments, it's like, you bring these items and you're assuming, a lot of people think a ghost actually comes with the item. If anything, it's more like stone tape theory. And for anyone that's not familiar with stone tape theory, that is the theory that the concrete, the brick, the wood, the mortar, all the things around us that we see are absorbing the energy of this environment. Us, mainly. Our voices are constantly being recorded. And this would later play what we may believe to be residual hauntings of the disembodied voices, the phantom footsteps. It could all be projected from that. But I think 95% of the time, these items that you are bringing in are covered with residual energy. It's right. More of a question of what does that residual energy do to the environment you bring it into. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah.
We'll talk about like haunted objects. I mean, I know that's the debate I'm coming up. I don't want to give too much about that. My take on that, a lot of people know my take on it. But I think haunted objects are more realistic than haunted dolls. And my theory is, like a haunted object, you talk about piano, you talk about desk. If a desk has an attachment, it's because maybe that person wrote, books on the desk. That was their best time in their life, was sitting down writing books, or sitting down playing piano. Dolls, yeah, I can't buy any doll stuff. That's just me. I don't know why someone would have a doll, and probably less than 4% might have an attachment to it. The rest are just because they're old and creepy.
I agree. I think the majority of a haunting on a doll is residual. It's, let's say a child loved that doll dramatically. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or that doll was in a house that experienced a lot of violence and trauma. That's just stained onto the doll. Does that mean there's an intelligence on the doll? No. But Someone had said, I had a sensitive that came in once that said something really interesting about Maddie. Now, I don't know where Maddie came from. That's one of the dolls. So when I purchased, well, you knew Maddie was there at the time, right?
Maddie was
So
there, yeah.
it's like, what the, dude, I'm walking, 2010 was the first time I was there. And of course, the ownership prior to this, they were not ghost hunters. They owned a nursery business. They just knew people like were crazy like us that wanted to go in, and we wanted to see if it was haunted, right? So of course uh, they had said that, this is Maddie. She's a haunted doll that's here. She belongs to one of the spirits. I don't even think she was in Sarah's room the first time I was there, maybe the second time. And then I was told it was Sarah's doll. And it's like, how convenient. How convenient a place gets shut down. And this ghost spirit. Now, it had to have been brought in by somebody because the seminary, the actual like Department of Health closes in 72 or so. Like, then it shuts down. It sits vacant for a few years. The police department takes over. They're there from 1980 to 86-ish. And then they transfer to another department out here on Hubbard. It sits vacant from 86 to about 93 until the former ownership bought it. So where in this time, like it's not from any of the women that were senile here at the turn of the century. Plus, also we know it's a Patty Pack and Play from the 1950s. So it cannot exceed the 50s. You get what I'm saying? Like I can't point its origin. My explanation would be a team in the very, very beginning. Who knows? It might have been the very first team that discovered Sarah, may have brought that doll that night and left it there. But there's no carbon footprint of their investigation or anything they did, So we're not going to know. We can only speculate on that. This sensitive said, though, because that doll gets so much attention, that spirits would be drawn to that because of the attention it gets. And that was a small turning point to me, because I'm not saying dolls are haunted. I think that is the stupidest gimmick for any location to say we have this huge room of haunted dolls. If what is it, Robert the doll down in Key West?
Yeah.
Or you've got Annabelle. If it is so sought after by the public at large, then it is possible there could be an attachment to it simply because it knows there's going to be a lot of people and the attention to it. Right. But if you go to a Goodwill and you just find a creepy ass doll on the counter, you're like, oh, I just feel like it's haunted. I don't know. No, I can't get behind that. Maybe a residual stain of energy, but I really doubt. I'm trying to come up with a scenario because I would like to see. I'm playing devil's advocate from all angles. Like maybe the doll consists of human hair. Maybe the doll has human teeth in it. I've seen some crazy contraptions of dolls. It's a very long shot, but I'm with you. I lean not towards that.
Right. I mean, it has to be less than 2%.
Less than 2%, yeah.
I mean,
I'm not going to rule it out completely because we're in the realm of the unknown. But I'm with you on those numbers. That's pretty healthy to say 98% of the cases. Just no.
Oh, because I bought an antique store. It's old. Well, 40 years, I'm going to be an antique and I'm going to be old. So am I going to be haunted? I mean,
right.
Come on, man. So let's talk about Madison real quick because this has been bothering me. I talked to you a little bit about this. What the hell is up with the stories just popping up?
The what popping up?
The stories.
Yes.
The portal in the closet Sarah's room. When did that come about?
So from what I've heard, back in the day, people had said that Sarah's closet was a portal. That's what we were told by former ownership. I honestly forgot about that for many years. I'm not the biggest believer in portals, but I'll get into our experiment with portals. The question when it comes to portals, and this is what's so tough, and this is a huge debate question. This will get people fired up and fighting each other. It's the chicken and the egg theory. What came first? When you say portal, did the portal exist in that location before you came there? Or did we create the portal by maybe thinning the veil, by communicating heavily in that area? There's people on both sides of that argument. I guess how I feel about portals, if they exist, well, I think everything can be a portal. What is a portal? Because when you think of portal, something's coming through it, right?
Right.
These things would already exist in this plane. They wouldn't need a portal per se, unless you're thinking of something that tethers from one location to another. That would make more sense, but that's a whole different rabbit hole that may be not even relatable. So when it comes to portals, I do not stand on anything in Sarah's room. I know that there's something crazy going on in that area. I think it's self-induced. I think by us all communicating with something, maybe we created the haunting there. But I will say there's something intelligent that is there now, that likes to bite back at times. It's very, very smart. It knows when it wants to come out. It understands puppetry. But then Jeff Fenn and I got together, and this gets into the mirror room that we created on the first floor on the opposing side of the caretaker's wing. It is a 6x6x6 cube. That's how the measurements came out, of mirrors. And it's based on something called a devil's toy box. I'm not a big believer in demons. I was raised Catholic. I'm not very religious. Never really, I can't really get behind the demon thing. I think if they do exist, they got more important things to do than try to possess ghost hunters. Why wouldn't you be trying to infiltrate the Pentagon or, places of high interest if you existed? But with the mirror room, and this is a question I can ask you, what do you know about facing mirrors at each other?
Suppose they create portals. I don't believe in that stuff, but
right. I ask people this all the time. Why? People say, well, that's bad, you shouldn't do that. But why? Is that a wives' tale or something that got spread down from the Victorian era? I want to do it for research, because I said to Jeff, let's try. What would happen? And here's where it comes down to the subjectiveness of the investigator, right? Every investigation is open to the subjectivity of the user. If you were to show me evidence from your investigation, I'm just observing it. I was not there. I don't know all the situation that was happening, all the circumstances, the different kind of feels that were happening, and even some more of the evidence that hasn't been presented, right? It's interesting, the things that happen to people when they do Estes in there, when they do EVP recordings and stuff. Is it because mirrors? That's something they've said for a long time, like mirrors shouldn't be facing each other. It creates an infinity loop. All these things travel through mirrors. Again, if you interview Jeff, or even just talk to Jeff, he'll say the same thing. We're sitting on the back porch, just a 15-minute discussion. We're like, let's do it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people that say they've experienced nothing in there, and I had a lot of people say that, man, their Estes was crazy. Could that be the subjectivity of the user? Possible. Very possible.
I think it's just like Sarah's room, the detention. Because people are going to the devil's toy box. Everybody's doing devil's toy box. Everybody's doing Sarah's. So it's not the mirrors that are created. We're creating the haunting in there.
So that would get into the portal idea, maybe, that we're creating these hotspots where spirits. Well, again, there's some investigators out there that think a spirit like Sarah's room. Sarah hangs out in Sarah's room the whole time, right? Just waiting for someone to come in. These spirits can, I believe, free roam throughout the building. They could follow people, then again, it's very ballsy to even say we're talking to the same Sarah. The Sarah you talked to on your night may have not been the same Sarah I was talking to on my night. This could be the mimic theory of spirits just jumping in and out, and they know the script. They know to be the perfect actress because they've heard the history over and over again. They've heard the theories we have about them, and they're like, oh, we'll be this theory tonight. Okay, cool. But the same haunting that's happening with Sarah could be coming over to the mirror room because there's a heavy traffic going in there. Just like you said, that's very, very, very plausible.
All right. So newest one I heard lately, Madison, twins in the attic.
That's new to me.
Okay, good.
Here's the thing, and I'll say about this, and I get a lot of scrutiny for this because teams will come in and say this to me, like, you should know you're the owner. I don't exit interview teams. Right. Now here's, this gets interesting to how we started this. I think, we're lagging a little bit.
You're good.
Okay. All right. It was just glitchy here on mine. That, a haunting evolves after all this time. The haunting when you first walked in 19 years ago, and the haunting I experienced 16 years ago, or even before that was 2010. 16 years ago. It's different than it is now. So what is being brought into a location? What I can say is, you have the foreign versus domestic haunting. I don't know what is domestic still there. I don't know. It probably, if you think about things get buried over time, think of it like layers of the earth. It just keeps getting buried. It's still there, but you have to dig for it, right? You got to peel these layers back. But every investigation, your investigation, my investigation, the thousands of investigations that have happened here are all creating sediment, a layer of the haunting that eventually is going to, it's contaminating it, right? It's contaminated. It's like going to a beach and leaving your trash there. And then we push sand back over it. We clean it up, but that trash is still there, right? There's layers, layers, layers. Someone that night may have experienced something, but then you got to debate. Was it an attachment that followed in there? Or did you see two shadow people at the same time from opposite ends? Because I've heard this where, you know, you get two shadow peeps there and it's like, well, they're twins. I think I vaguely remember this now, someone talking about that. I mean, I've heard 1,000 different things.
I know.
But that's the thing. That's not ground for law. And even we can't be the jurisdiction. No. I was telling the crew this, that over time, there were a lot of people that did a lot of shit talking. That's not the Madison Seminary. I remember before you bought it, you changed the whole haunting. It's like, well, first off, listen, there are things happening. And if it happens enough, you know, or, you know, the crew has investigated that place a lot. We have dubbed a few rooms with names. That helps us identify maybe situations that happen that were canon events. You know, you got the room we've called the Mind Warp room, but it probably had a name before we got there. We just call it Mind Warp because there have been some interesting cases of people having very, very messed up situations or circumstances in there or experiences. You know, now, again, in 10 years, can the haunting evolve again? 100%. Yeah. We've already seen it. It's going to happen. And when we're well, long and gone, and someone's watching this podcast 100 years in the future for footnotes, they're going to find this to be very interesting, but they're going to be like, what the hell are they talking about? Sarah's room? There's no Sarah. That's Jolene or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you said, creating hauntings, and that just doesn't go for room to room. That goes for the whole building. So what does Madison Seminary have that the building down the street doesn't have? You know, why isn't that? It's because we're asking the questions.
Yes.
So
yes.
If a spirit wants to be heard, they're going to go where people are asking questions.
Yes.
So, I mean, they may not be attached to the building, but they're 100%. Attached to the. So
here's what it comes down to, and I call this like open mic night, right? You do have a domestic haunting. You had over 250 some women we know passed away in the seminary. The ledger book goes on and on. There's a lot of women that passed away in that building, right? That'd be your domestic layer. So you would have an advantage going to the seminary and maybe experiencing something versus the neighbor, right? But maybe you get a lot of splash effect. Maybe it's just so close because the land was attached to that one time. Maybe the experience of their house and they just don't tell me. You know, like if I actually maybe sat down with them, like, man, every night we hear weird noises and footsteps, and it's probably a splash because of the radius of the seminary. But let's say we go to the other side of Madison right now. This is in Madison, Ohio. We go to the other side of town. And we start having people investigate there. Like, just tell ghost hunters, this place, it's called the Brian theory, where you just tell people that it's haunted by a little boy named Brian, have investigators go in, and according to the theory, eventually they're going to start getting answers of a ghost saying his name's Brian, things like that. You're getting an intelligent response. This could get into mimic, though. There could be a man named Paul there with like, shit, they don't even know my name is Paul. And if I say Paul, they keep asking for Brian. So I'm just going to be Brian.
Right.
But if you were to go to those houses and heavily investigate it, I believe you can create any spot to be haunted because of its popularity. If you have a revolving door of people coming in and out of there, you're going to have attachments that go into that place. They're going to stay there for a little bit. They're going to attach to other people. They're going to leave. And it's going to be this revolving door. So really you could do it anywhere. One of my theories or my plans was to, you know, buy a house with no history to it whatsoever and just let the community investigate there and see what rolls with it, with no deaths there, no anything. That would be a very interesting experiment to see what happens. Let the community write the narrative, you know?
Right. I was like a lot of people on the show, like, I'd love to own a haunted location. Well, just sit in your house, start asking questions.
There you go. You already got one.
You'll have one.
It's true. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, we don't investigate at our house. We investigate when we go out. Dude, that gets into a lot of, I've got deep questions here of like that stuff. It's like, I don't know how to could you set boundaries for the dead? Yeah, maybe. That would come with like intent and, you know, output of energy, maybe. It's like the power of prayer. Like, regardless if anyone believes in religion or not, if you are putting that much power into a thought and you get a group of people praying in a room, yeah, weird stuff starts to happen because we are manifesting an energy to do that. Could you put those boundaries up and say like, no, ghosts can't follow me home, things like that? No. I don't think it's always going to work, if any.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, I think they're going to follow you no matter what. You know, but that was one of the questions I had here. It's like, it's controversial topics. One of the controversial topics was, does protection work? Beck and I went to Sheboygan Asylum up in Wisconsin for a tour. And I've never seen how other properties run. Like, literally, in my 16 years, I have stayed close to home to base. Like, I am a majority of the time either at the Madison Seminary or the Fairfield County Infirmary, or I travel over to ISS to help with events we have going there. I don't travel outside of the network often. So I hear a lot of complaints from the community of their complaints of how other locations are running things. And there's other locations that people love. You know, I could have a whole show called Paranormal Bartender. I can tell you at large what the community thinks of places. But we went to Sheboygan, and this was very interesting. And shout out to Frank. He was one of the guides there that night. We had to leave early, and he gave us a little private tour because we drove like 10 and a half hours. We were out visiting family in the area. But when we started that tour, the one tour guide said, if you have protection on, take it off. I was like, wow, that's interesting. Like, not that I'm in that ballpark. I don't carry protection, but I'm like, holy shit. You try to do this in an area like in Ohio where we have a lot of traffic, you're going to have a lot of irate people. Like, I'm not taking my cross off. I'm not taking my rocks off. And now here's the power of like groups. It's like if you were to do an experiment and we all see the color red, and there's 20 of us that see the color red on the wall, but the 19 of us say, no matter what happens, say it's blue. What's interesting, what happens to that last 20th person that's like the last one up, and it's like, dude, that's red, but everyone's saying blue. I guess, shit, I'll say it's blue. And it was interesting how everyone surrendered their protection when people started doing it. Another thing is just weird. The lady goes, we're getting rid of this because this is a ghost town, which I was like, oh, shit, I just wanted a historical tour. I was like, fuck, I did not sign up for this shit. But they did that, and I was like, wow, very interesting. You know what I mean? That comes down to a certain kind of belief. Like, does protection do that? And I guess in their case, they do believe that would work, right? So,
right.
I don't know.
That's the whole thing. You're talking about protection, and, you know, I don't have anything. I just believe my positive attitude and my belief is what works. But I do find it funny when people are like, you can't follow me home. Like, if I'm a spirit, that's an invitation, dude. Like, let's get game on. We're gonna have some fun now.
I guess I will be following you home. I had my own plans tonight, but I will be following you.
So I mean, but if you believe that works, then I think that would, because I think it's mind over matter, majority of this stuff, anyways.